In today's video, we're going to look at the UP Studio, which is the software interface for the UP brand 3D printers. So when you first launch the software, you get greeted with a splash screen, which gives you a bit of a message of the day. At the moment, it's advertising UpBox Plus, but get used to seeing different things at different times as the company tries to push their various products, services, and software on you. So next on the menu, we've got Account. And this is an area that, to be honest, I haven't really used. It's like a basic cloud software. It hasn't been a massive amount of use. I use Dropbox to store my files. I've got quite a well-developed system in there, and I don't really see the point in using their particular own brand cloud. In the library, it's a similar kind of thing. There's also an app that allows you to store files, and in the help area we've got various videos and quite an interesting G-code tutorial which shows you how you can output G-codes and load them in to the software interface. So normally you load in an STL, but you can actually load in custom G-codes. Good for educators. The UP brand has a strong education market, but I can't really think of any useful application for the average designer or engineer. So onto the main function of the software, and that's this UP Cube button. So when you click that, you get a representation of the build area. Now I have an UP Mini 2, so the representation is of the actual build area I have. So I can only guess that if you have an UpBox Plus or something like that, it resizes. So the interface itself is very self-explanatory and it's pretty easy to use. You've got the buttons down the left-hand side. One of the most useful is the settings menu because it allows you to preheat. Now the UP Mini 2 ships with a couple of different boards, the UP Flex and the Perf board. I've recently become rather fond of the Perf board, and I'll go into that in a future video why. So I select that there, I can extrude or withdraw, do various maintenance options here. We have a preheat cycle, that's always worth doing. Hit the preheat as soon as you switch it on, and you can choose from a number of different settings. And this, I believe, is actually a new feature, shockingly, because various RepRap systems allow you to have customized settings for years, but you can actually add in your own nozzle and platform temperatures. ABS at 270 and 90-degree platform is typically quite high for ABS, but you do have quite a controlled supply chain where the UP Feeler 3D printing filament does extrude these higher temperatures. So coming out of that, we've got material, the weight left on the filament. You can actually select that. Now, given that the UP brand, or at least the UP Mini 2, has a 500 grams filament, I'm not entirely sure why you've got a kilogram there available, but perhaps that's for some of the bigger printers. And a history is an uneditable section which shows you how much you've extruded, and I've already gone through 1.3 kilograms, which is pretty amazing actually. It's amazing how much you get through. So going backwards, we've got the calibration. I'm going to do a separate video on this, but this is a 9-point calibration, and I got excited about this originally because I believed that once you'd set the individual points, it would tram the X and Y axis depending on the offset of the bed. Actually, what I believe this does is it simply sets the nozzle height to whatever the lowest of these 9 parameters shown on the grid is, which is a lot less useful, I guess, but to be honest, I'm now getting really reliable prints, so I don't worry about that too much. Model calibration isn't something I've tried, but I believe you can load up a calibration model and you can test the various parameters based on how this performs. Now we're getting into the area of layout, so I'm going to delete this and I'm going to use the thing that you use the most, which are we'll come on to the print in a second. We'll use the add button. So I'm going to add, you can either add primitives. Again, not entirely sure why you would do that outside of an education setting. The add an image allows you to basically print lithopanes, make 3D renderings of 2D images. Again, not terribly useful, to be honest with you. There's better scripts on Thingiverse that allow you to do that. But if we add in a file, I'm going to choose a file that I've been printing recently, which has caused me a bit of trouble, I'll be honest. it's the XY mount, which is one of the bigger parts on the MPCNC. So I'll add that in. And look at this beast. Even though it's not a massive print file in the grand scheme of 3D printing, it's big enough for the Up Mini 2, and it actually overhangs the bed. So how do we go about changing that? Now, as far as I'm aware, I right click. There isn't a free transform where I can just move that around. So I have to use this this little pop-up window. So I've got move, which allows me to translate in X, Y, Z. The thing that you use this most for is to check that the Z is dropped to bed. But to be honest, it's pretty reliable. You can drop to bed on the Z, and that works most of the time. We've got a scale function again. Not sure why you'd use that. Generally, I have much more success in preparing models in a pre-printer environment. So something like CAD is much more reliable for scaling. We have view, which allows you to snap to various views. It's basically a more advanced version of this view cube down here, which is taken from the Autodesk sort of suite of tools. So we've got some options there. Here we've got display mode, so we can see a wireframe version, the tessellated triangles and things of that nature. Again, if you're going to use that to check for inverted faces, I guess it could be useful, but I use NetFab. There's always better tools. This tries to do a lot of things, and not all of them are useful, to be quite honest with you. We've got a section, which is, again, a lovely feature, but generally for me, if it's in this software interface, I'm confident of the model. So I'm not sure of the workflow where you'd actually need that, although I suppose it's nice. Again, you've got to remember that Up is, a lot of it is aimed at education, so that could be a useful demonstration tool without having to pay for, license, or use expensive CAD software. We have an autoplace, which does effectively the same as dropping to the Z-axis. Gone through scale, and on the more menu, we've got some extra menus in here. So you can edit, I think that's support. Yeah, so you can change support angles and things. And this is a common theme in the software. This to me is a useful thing, yet it is hidden away in a quite bizarre interface. Again, I want to cancel that. I want to click up here, but it takes a bit of getting used to. Cancel is down here at the bottom, which is strange, but fine once you get used to it. We have reset to default. Save the model, any changes you've made in there. So I guess if you make translations or rotations, and fix errors, which is basically a poor man's NetFab. In that particular menu, you can look for inverted faces and any other errors that you commonly get with STLs. Finally, we have flip, which basically mirrors the thing. I'm not going to do that here. And now we get on to rotate, because the problem we had is that this thing doesn't actually fit on the bed. So look at this and see what you think. What I would love here is to be able to click and drag. And I can do, but it defaults to the X-axis, which isn't terribly intuitive. So I'm going to undo, Control Z for that. I'm going to choose the Z-axis, and it is, look at that, it's snapped back to X. It's rather frustrating, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure this is just a quirk of the user interface, but it's difficult, it's unnecessarily difficult. So what I tend to do is I use these pre-snaps. So click on Z, I'm going to snap here, and that hasn't done it, so I'm going to go plus 45, I'm going to go and what you end up doing, in my experience with this software, is you play with various combinations of 45s and 30s till you actually get it where you want. Once you've got it where you want, then it's going to be a case of getting it central to the bed. And you'll notice there's this quite strange perspective mode. So it's almost like a 1D perspective. So I'm looking down. I don't like that in CAD, actually. I only use perspective for rendering. I find that in layout, it makes things sort of difficult. You almost get a faux parallax error, which is entirely pointless, to be quite honest with you, for the small benefit of it just looking quite nice. So that's a real shame that that particular feature exists. But there we have it. It's ready. I can now print that. So if I was to print that, I get a number of options. I get to choose my layer thickness. It's I think it's a 0.4mm nozzle, so everything's less than that. 0.25 is really lovely. I haven't tried any of the smaller intervals, but 0.3 is my go-to default. Again, they've tried to be clever with the interface, and I found myself mousing over to find out what on earth these mean. So that's a 13% infill, bizarrely, 15%, 2% in difference there, 20%, 65, 80, 99, and it's just unnecessary. I would love a drop-down menu. We've got unsolid model, which is, I'm not entirely sure what that is. There's no tooltip for that, and we can choose turn off reference support, but we can hit print there to actually send a print to the printer. I'm going to stop that, because what I'm actually going to do is bring in a different model, and it does give us some little pop-up of build volume and things of that nature. One thing that I have noticed with the Up Mini 2 is its estimations of build volume and time have been very, very good actually. So last thing I'm going to do is just bring in a model that I'm going to do for Wednesday's video. And look at this. This is a design that has been created by a computer rather than myself, and we've got various faults on it. So this is where we're going to have issues which need fixing. Now this will be a piece of cake to do in NetFab. It seems to be fine, although we've got this red area here. I would have 100% confidence in NetFab that that would work. It looks like we've got two inverted faces, or several actually. So to me, the Up Studio is a piece of software which does the basics pretty well, but almost tries to do too much. It gets a little bit confusing with this this view window or wheel or whatever on earth they want to call it. I would much prefer a standard interface, but that's maybe me being old-fashioned. I don't know, they've tried too hard to make it slick and actually made it hard to use. A lot of these icons don't actually mean anything. I've got to mouse over it, just takes too long. But you know what? The Up Mini 2 is a fantastic 3D printer, and I've got a review coming here soon on this channel. But I think the software perhaps is a little bit of a letdown of an otherwise good 3D printer. Again, basics are absolutely solid. The diagnostics and the telemetry, as it were, of temperatures are very accurate. Guesstimates on build times are very accurate. The basics of adding parts and printing them are great, but the interface is a bit naff, to be honest with you. You know, where's my menus? What happens if I don't want 65, I want 67% infill? If you can do it, it's very hard, and it shouldn't be. There we have some extra options there on this little hidden window. It's strange and it can be improved, but let me know what you think. Do you like this software? What am I missing? Comment to let me know. Anyway, if you like these videos and you want to see more on the Up Mini 3D and any 3D printer and home CNC content, do like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you next week.